Testing 1, 2, testing.
Good evening, everyone. I'm calling this special meeting of the Village Board to order at 7 p.m. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call is showing all trustees are present. I'd like to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. To the flag, States of America, to the republic which stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are now on to the President's report. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to share what has been going on since my last President's report update. This President's report is somewhat dated as our regularly scheduled village board meeting on October 20 did not take place. For the first time in 8 years, we failed to properly post our agendas in public areas throughout the village. If we have gone forward with the meetings, we would have been in violation of Wisconsin law, which we will not do. By canceling the village board meeting, we did a disservice to you, our constituents, as we could not engage in village business to move our village forward. This was totally unacceptable and will not happen again. Please accept my sincere apologies. Moving forward, I will now continue with the President's report. Unfortunately, the Brewers were swept by the Dodgers, but still had a great season. But there is good news, as last night the Packers beat Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers last night, so all is good. For those that attended the grand opening ceremony and ribbon cutting event for the newly opened Quick Trip on October 9, fun was had by all. Even Miss Wisconsin showed up for this fun event. Thank you to Quick Trip, a great Wisconsin company, for this $9.5 million investment in our community, along with many new jobs. And a very special thank you to the previous village board for getting this done. The fire safety event that was held at the fire station on October 16 was also a success. Many adults and kids attended, and again, fun was had by all. A special shout out to the Germantown Police Department and specifically Sergeant Pesh and his canine partner, Eric, that on October 11, while patrolling northbound on I-41 near Holy Hill Road, they observed a vehicle with no rear license plate. A traffic stop was initiated, and it was determined that the driver, a 41-year Milwaukee man, had an active warrant through the West Allis Police Department. During the investigation, Canine Eric conducted an open-air sniff of the vehicle and alerted to the presence of narcotics. A search of the vehicle led to the seizure of drugs and also one handgun. The driver was taken into custody and transported to the Washington County Jail, where he was charged with multiple felonies that included possession of narcotics and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. A shout out and great work to Sergeant Pesh and Canine Eric for keeping dangerous drugs and weapons off of our streets and for keeping our community safe. For those trick-or-treaters out there, on October 31, the hours for trick-or-treat within the village are from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. This is always a fun event, seeing all the kids and adults in their costumes. As there will be lots of kids going back and forth on the streets, please be mindful of all the kiddos out there and the adults too. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had numerous meetings with village staff, our village administrator, and our village attorney on matters that impact the village. At the October 13 Plan Commission meeting, the commission turned down a planned solar field development in the northeast corner of the village, but did approve moving forward with next steps associated with planned development at Blackstone Creek. This past Friday, we heard some bad news relative to FEMA public assistance requests from the October rain and the catastrophic flooding that impacted our community. The president has denied a request from Wisconsin communities for funding to reimburse local government expenses incurred responding to the August floods. Governor Evers is, of course, appealing this denial. Village costs during that time were approximately $500,000, and if we cannot find monies in our current fiscal budget to absorb those expenses, more than likely the $500,000 will be coming out of fund balance. And speaking of the budget tonight, we're going to get an update on the budget process for this coming year. Over the past several weeks, we've conducted 2 committee of the whole meetings and I'm pleased to say that we have met our budget targets. I want to thank the committees and the commissions that did the initial review and vetting of the budgets, along with the entire village board for further review and vetting at the COW meetings. Also, a thank you to our department heads, our finance director, and our village administrator for bringing in a balanced budget. Tonight, we'll be discussing next steps associated with the long overdue fire station renovation, along with a new police station. In addition, we will be discussing a proposed ATV, UTV use on village roads, which I think is exciting. And we will be finalizing a request for proposals for community engagement service related to redevelopment of the former Flower Source property in the village center. This RFP will also include the Grosnick property as well, which makes sense. I am very excited, and I think we all are, about moving this forward to the next phase. This morning, I met with our lead auditor from Baker Tilly to discuss the upcoming village's 2025 village audit that will start soon. They have reached out to me to discuss the current state of the village along with concerns or issues that I have. They will also be reaching out to the chair of the General Government and Finance Committee to get his perspective as well. This week on October 29, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., I will be conducting a listening session along with our village administrator at Latitudes Cafe. The intent is to get your questions answered and for us to address your concerns. I'm hearing lots of good things that we are all doing, but we want to hear where there are opportunities as well. Additional sessions are planned, so stay tuned. In closing, I'm looking forward to our meeting this evening as we work together to move Germantown forward. Thank you. We are now on to announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports. Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room at 5:30 p.m. the first Wednesday of November, which I'm looking for desperately here. The 5th, did I hear? On November 5th.
Great, thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet in this room the 17th of November at 5:30 p.m., not a.m., p.m.
Thank you. Trustee Betcutts.
Public Safety will meet in this room on Monday, November 3rd at 6 p.m.
And Trustee Jan Miller.
The Economic Development Committee will meet tomorrow night, October 28th at 6 p.m. in this room.
Thank you. Any other trustees have any announcements of interest? Trustee Jan Miller.
Well, first of all, since we don't have too many more meetings coming up here in early November, I thought I'd just remind you, Halloween isn't even here, but I'm going to talk about our Christmas festival. It's November 15th, Saturday, and festivities start at 9:45 a.m. with a Jingle Bell Dash. It's for kids, and then a 5K candy cane walk run. The parade is at 1:30, and there's Christmas in the park with food and beverages and all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, the very famous tree lighting at Fireman's Park at 4:30 p.m. And that lighting will be done by President Soderberg. In addition to that, we have this week our Germantown. We have a seminar about our Germantown Business Loan Pool Seminar. It is from Thursday morning from 8:30 to 9:30 here in the boardroom. And all businesses that are new and expanding are welcome to come. And what this loan pool is anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000. And it's a fixed interest rate of, drumroll, 1%, 1%. And each loan is evaluated separately, and approval is needed. So if you'd like to learn more about it, please come, or please tell other businesses that want to make some new improvements, update their computer system, do something wonderful to beautify their area, and we'll give you applications. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make an announcement? Okay, moving on to item 6, citizen input. Would anybody like to come forward tonight and speak? You have 4 minutes. Good evening and welcome.
Guess it's okay. I'm just going to repeat from the last meeting. From the book of Proverbs, a prudent person foresees and avoids danger where the simple-minded person ignores it and all affected suffer consequences. The word simple in scripture means a lack of foresight and judgment that leads to inevitable negative outcomes and does not consider the consequences, or they ignore them and it doesn't matter. They ignore them if they do. And this verse applies to secular as well as spiritual. But you know what? The decisions this board makes impact our tomorrows of every taxpayer citizen here tonight. And it's not just yours, but everyone that is affected. And in my opinion, and of many others, when I get phone calls and I'm out there, the fingers point to a board. Now, in the past, the board, we feel, has lacked some responsibilities in the last few years. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the debt we're in because of some of the decisions that were made. And when people are making decisions that don't have the foresight, then those that have the foresight, which would be some taxpayers, they're ignored and they're put into an extremely high debt situation. And this has to change. We talked in the meeting previously, and I want to thank Terry for her speaking outward for this negative on the pay raise, because we would save $200,000 a year if we let this pay raise go and not do it for the other than the police and fire. They have their union, which guards their pay raise. But that's a lot of money. Everybody's suffering right now, okay? And when I talked to Matt about the budget, I said, who's the lowest paid? The lowest paid person that's working on our staff in the back end makes more than about 30% of the elderly on Social Security who are living. So I don't think we need to put a pay raise in effect now. And those that are over $100,000 a year, I think maybe they should donate some of their raise. The police department, I feel, should be on hold. I think we can't afford $30 million. This is crazy. I don't know where these people are coming from. When I talk to the superintendent and the director of development, they say, well, your board votes for this stuff. So they're blaming you. They're saying it's your problem. You're making the vote for all this stuff. They come up with the idea and you're voting for it. So maybe it's time to say no to these people. And as far as these ATVs go, you know what? There's no problem now because they're not on the road. Go to Milwaukee and look at all the scooters laying around. And these ATVs should not, our traffic is getting absolutely unbelievable on Pilgrim Road and Mequon Road. And I think putting these in the traffic right now is not a good, it's a nice decision, but I don't think it's a smart decision. And so all I'm saying is the public meetings, if you think these little meetings you're having in coffee shops are going to replace a public meeting, I don't think they are. That's not how you hold a public meeting. And I would like to see meetings before we do anything with the police department and put us further in debt with the millions of dollars this is going to cost. So I'm asking the prudent people to use your head and maybe just say no to some stuff. We can wait a few years for, let's the next generation build all this stuff. We have 25 years before we can fulfill our obligation to this so-called 250 plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to come forward tonight and speak? Good evening and welcome.
Sarah Larson, Butternut Road. I'm going to comment on 3 items tonight. The proposed police headquarters. I listened to the public safety discussion about the building, and frankly, it was quite painful. It just felt like a circular conversation stuck on the chicken or the egg, what comes first in how to plan a project in terms of whether you should have the land first or the drawings first. And I think in recent track record, we've seen that the village doesn't execute project management very well. And we spend a lot on consultants, and then we get another consultant and another consultant. And I really think before anything is approved to be spent on this, there has to be some reflection and research about what the appropriate project plan and sequence of events should be. And I don't think the old DPW site makes sense for that based on where the majority of the calls are that the police department fields. The second item is I fully support the ATV usage north of Freistadt Road. We do have a rural part of this community, and though I don't live in it, if I did have that type of property, I would want the ability to use that type of vehicle because it's typical for what people use in those areas. And then lastly, kudos to the GGF committee tonight. I've listened to these meetings for a couple of years now, and it was refreshing. It really felt like you were asking great questions and you had listened to constituent concerns, and it just really felt like, wow, the taxpayers were represented tonight in that committee meeting. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to come forward and speak tonight? Good evening and welcome.
Okay, Melanie Smythe, N140W1793, 1738 Cedar Lane. Good evening. Okay, so I have a number of different topics. I'll try and speak fast. I'm for the ATVs. We heard earlier at the GGF meeting that there's 11% delinquencies, which I think is quite high. That's over 500 people, if I remember correctly, on the population who use the utilities. And that, to me, I did a little poll around me. Most people's sewer and water bills are between $200 and $300 every quarter. And apparently there is no kind of payment plan that if you are delinquent and you can't pay it or don't pay it, you can get a lien on your house. Well, I don't think that's terribly friendly. I think we should have some kind of payment plan for people who are getting into trouble. We're going to see more of that with the recession that's coming up. Transparency. Okay. I understand that the administrator sends out weekly updates to the trustees. They represent us. We should be able to see these also. Other municipalities do this. And when are the trustees going to get access to Tyler Munis so they can do their own homework on the budget and whatever else, so that they can represent us better? That keeps coming up, but I never hear anything about when it's going to happen. Let's see, police building. Okay. We're at the top of the real estate market. It's starting already to show signs in our area of dropping. Now's not a good time to look for real estate. We can't afford any more new sites. We have enough of them. That'll be talked about later. The heat map in the presentation says that the building should be south and east, possibly with access to the highway. In the existing DPW layout that I saw, nobody's talked about the roundabout that's going to go there, and it just seems like a bad idea to put police right beside a roundabout and where traffic doesn't stop and you can't control it by lights. Also, there's 3 different sizes of the building in the documents. What are they? What is the square footage that's actually going to be used? There's one that's from 10/21/24, 64.5 to 66.5 thousand square footage, 47,000 square footage on page 146, and then some other number on page 187. So what is it? What is the size that we want? And is $460 per square foot the right number? I think we should look at other options. There were a number of people, companies that submitted RFPs for this. Perhaps we should look at some of the actual costs of actual buildings that they did. before we actually sign on a dotted line. Okay, the RFP for, which one is this? Oh, engagement. Okay, so first of all, this is better than the one for Holy Hill in terms of engagement language. So good for whoever wrote this. Include this information in the Holy Hill one. Let's see, I have 3 questions. To what extent will the village act upon this information that's collected? In the past, they've disregarded people's comments at sessions like this, and they've taken some comments, but not all of them. Will you be able to reasonably honor what people represent about what they want and what they say? I can't read my own writing. Oh, and that's what it is. And what will you tell the consultant about this matter? How will you direct the consultant about what is important and how the information gathered will actually be worked into the project? My last comment on this is that I think that the district should have its master plan first, and then you can do a better job of collecting the information for these sites. I think it's backwards, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to come forward tonight and speak? Good evening and welcome.
I submitted a form online to speak tonight, but I'm Bob Simonson and I live at Blackstone Creek condominiums, N115-17853 Sawgrass Court. I'd like to read to the board an email I sent to my trustees Coots and Miller back on October 13th. I understand that the Public Works Committee has approved the change in the ordinance to have owners responsible for snow removal at sidewalks adjacent to their properties. I also understand that this change is on the agenda for the board on October 20th. Appreciate your comments regarding the change. In advance of that meeting, I'm asking you, my trustees, to vote no on behalf of the Glen at Blackstone Creek. In our development agreement, the village made the developer build 2 sidewalks along River Lane. Now, 17 years later, the same village wants us to be responsible for snow removal. It's wrong. Outside of emergency services, our community receives no other services from the village. Nothing. We were denied snow removal and trash pickup, even though you provide the same services to Wrenwood subdivision. If this change in ordinance is a cost reduction example or exercise, I would recommend that the Department of Public Works conduct a benchmarking exercise to compare processes and costs with other like communities such as Sussex, Port Washington, Mequon, and others. This exercise may result in other efficiencies in staffing, vehicle maintenance, procurement, and others. The result of this exercise should be made public, and I believe this to be a higher value than cutting services to the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to come forward and speak tonight? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Scott Heffley, W159 N1514 Old Farm Road. A few things on the agenda tonight. That resolution authorizing a grant application. I think this was discussed a few times. I know he voted to go away with it. Now we're back with it, but this grant application's been out there a couple months. I mean, I think we should have been working on it the whole time and see where we're at. And I understand, but I have 6 clients in the northeastern part of Germantown, and none of them have ability. They have flip phones. Okay, I don't know what to tell you guys, but there are old people that don't have a weather app on their phone. So I'm sure they like it to have like to have the sirens. We'll see what happens. As far as the ATV, I've been against it when it came up a year and a half ago. I'm still not excited about it still, but I realize that every other community has it. I would say if this village decides to do that, they don't go south of Freistadt Road. I'm sorry. I did hear you could put them on Mequon Road and that. No, look at the heat map. 95% of the calls are right along Mequon Road and just a little bit north and south. That'd be a horrible idea. So if you're going to do it, Freistadt and up. up to Pioneer Road and however, wherever those roads are. With regard to the budget, I hear that budget's balanced. I'm up here a lot discussing how we balance budgets. You can balance them any way you want. We choose to balance ours with shifting operational costs over to from the budgets over to borrowing. That's how we do it here. Anyone here that was on the school board would know when I used to go over there, they told me that their budget was balanced and they had $1.5 million structural deficits, which is not a balanced budget. So I feel like we're doing that kind of the same way here. We're not really getting control of our operational budgets, and we're just shifting to borrowing or allocating more and more salaries to the TIDs or whatever we're doing. You're going to run out of time on those TIDs, guys. It's not going to work forever. So keep an eye on that. The estimated cost to construct a police station on the former Public Works building. I understand that's a hot topic for discussion, but when I look at the heat maps and 90% of the calls are basically Main Street down to County Line Road, I don't know why you'd want to increase your response time to police all the way up by the old DPW building. And I know some people want that because they want development to go up there, they want sewer and water. There's other things in play that people want, but did we ask the police chief what he wants and what his officers want and what his command staff wants? I think they want the best response time that they can have. So there are other options if you're willing to look in those. Staying with public safety, I 100% the support of remodeling Fire Station 2 because it needs to be done. We know they discovered black mold there. There's a lot of issues there. 6 million is less than 30 million. Okay, I think we know that. It might get them through a couple of years while we're trying to figure this all out, but that would be one of those things where I'm okay with the borrowing, even though I know it's not ideal because we have a tight budget. As far as the development of the engagement services to the Flower Source in Grosnick, please do this the right way, not the way it was done the last time. I'm encouraged that because the last time was totally steered towards the way somebody wanted it to come out, and that's not the way you do it. And as far as the sidewalk, snow and ice removal, I don't have a sidewalk near my house, so I've been taking care of it myself for 30 years, but I do feel for the people from Blackstone when they were told one thing and then they find out 17 years later it's another thing. That is not the right thing to do. But it would save us money by not having to buy these expensive machines to keep plowing everybody's sidewalks. So you have to balance that because we'd save about $150,000 if we put that municipal quote if we did the change. So all for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak tonight? Anyone on WebEx that would like to speak tonight? Do we have any email comments sent in?
We have several that I'll read here. The first one is from the Schneiders. Reads, hello, since the meeting was canceled for GGF, resending for the meeting on 10/27/25. Please read both emails. Thanks. Another thing to think about, what if this happens, we go to war, maybe China. Just saw something on the internet. It could be true or not. Don't you think it would be in the best interest of the village to keep the sirens to alert the residents if we are under attack? You never know what will happen in this world. Rather be safe than sorry. The Schneiders. The second email. Hello, we agree you need to approve the authorizing for the grant application for the emergency sirens. Some on this board assume that everyone in the village has a cell phone or nor they want one. You need to keep what the residents are asking for a change. Please do the right thing by voting yes for the authorizing grant application. Thank you, the Schneiders. The next email is from Tom Barney. I'm not sure if you considered expanding the current police station versus building new. I do not know the full needs that are not met by the current station, but there seems to be ample space on the current lot where expansion could occur. I have attached a rough example of what could be done to use some of the green space between the buildings to create new indoor space. Thank you for your consideration, Tom Barney, and you all received this email if you want to look at the attachments. Then Finally, we have another one that was submitted from Tyler Gallenberg. Below, I've forwarded my concerns already to Jen Miller and are forwarding to the wider board. I have concerns with how the proposed sidewalk snow removal amendments would impact Meadow Creek Crossing subdivision and any previous agreements. I would like to maintain the current snow maintenance of sidewalks under Germantown responsibility, as this creates logistical challenges for our HOA and additional work to manage, as our HOA is run by volunteers in our free time. I remain doubtful that any reduction in tax levy to our homeowners would cover the costs of taking on any snow removal, if that would be the case if this change were approved and impacted Meadow Creek Crossing. As a resident who previously lived in Milwaukee County, I would like the burden to remain on Germantown to keep the expense and pressure on the village to reduce further expansion of unnecessary sidewalks in a non-urban environment. Next action I see in our future, if sidewalks continue to expand, is the village shifting the repair and maintenance cost on the property owners next, with high surprise special assessments to repair and replace sidewalks that are common in Milwaukee County. As this is the reasoning used to move the snow removal responsibility to the homeowners, municipalities around us are doing it this way. The village should bear the burden for their decision in the expansion of sidewalks. To use this as a justification, snow removal costs for expanding sidewalks would become too high or untenable. For shifting it back to the property owners is a cop-out for their decisions to expand sidewalks and takes out the burden of responsibility, cost to maintain, and that these decisions to expand sidewalks have long-term. Thank you for considering
Those in the room here tonight or on WebEx like to speak? Okay, moving on to item 7, appointments to boards, committees, or commissions. Item A, Administrative Appeals Review Board. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of the nomination of Bill Nyreither to the Administrative Appeals Review Board.
I'll second.
We have discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to item 8, consent agenda. Item A, minutes, October 6, 2025 minutes. And item B, resolution authorizing a grant application for funds to update the village's emergency alert sirens.
Move approval of consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
Discussion. Trustee Warren,
Like to pull item B as in Bravo.
you can do that. Take a vote on item A. You have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item B, resolution authorizing a grant application for funds to update the village's emergency alert sirens. And Brian, we did have a motion and a second for that. Do we still need to do that?
No, technically that motion would still stand. You effectively have just split the
There you go.
question.
Discussion. Trustee Warren.
So I understand this is a motion to apply for the grant for half of the fee, $50,000. What happens if we don't get that grant? Are we committed to paying $100,000 to upgrade the sirens?
Chief Merton has been working on the grant. I'll let him.
Good evening, Chief. Welcome.
That's a good question. The purpose of this resolution is to apply for the grant. You need some recommendations to get the grant from FEMA. The FEMA is a 50-50 grant, so the village would have to come up with 50% if the grant was approved. If the village decided, if we got the grant and the village decided not to come up with the other 50%, we wouldn't accept the grant. And then the village board would have to decide what we want to do with the sirens.
Yeah, and Trustee Baum.
So with this grant application, what is the intent to do with the sirens? Are we going to go get more money than we've talked about in the past so we can completely retrofit and bring them all up to date? or are we just going to do the patchwork that we've talked about at public safety?
It would basically be bringing them up to date so that they would be able to be set off by the National Weather Service and not have to have somebody manually set them off. If we wanted to update them completely, you'd be looking at a couple $100,000.
Would it be wise for us to seek to do the couple $100,000 to do it right and get it done correctly?
I don't think so. Talking with our company that maintains them right now, they said as long as you keep up with the maintenance on the sirens could last for another 20 years. As long as you're keeping up on that maintenance. If you don't, you could have failures.
Thank you.
You know, I'll just comment, there has been a lot of discussion amongst this board, amongst the Public Safety Committee in terms of what is the path forward in the village from a mass notification standpoint. Both of our chiefs from fire and police have continued to support the sirens today. I know there's discussion on there's other options available. And I believe, Trustee Cutts, your committee is going to be looking at those options available as, with the sirens. Is there another way that we can notify folks? And we've heard all the comments before, and I understand that. But today we've got the sirens, and I think Chief wants to just maintain those until such time there's alignment of the trustees on a different path. That's all I'm saying. So, Trustee Warren.
Chief, do you recall what's the yearly maintenance on these sirens?
This year, I believe it's 3,500. Every other year, it's a little more because one year they do the sirens and the motors, and then the second year they just do the maintenance on the motors because there's two motors, one for the rotating siren and one also for the regular activation. So every other year they do a complete. So they're roughly 3,500. I believe next year the quote was over 4.
So if we're lucky, we'll get this grant. The village is still putting 50,000 into it. This brings us up to speed for 20 some years, 30 some years, you're saying?
It could.
It could.
What I'm saying is that if we keep up on the maintenance with the sirens, replace the parts that are worn, replace the items that are malfunctioning, they should. They've already been up for 25 years. They've outlasted their warranty. So the company can't guarantee they're going to last for another 20 years. They say as long as you keep up with the maintenance on them and repair the parts that you need. One thing is they did mention that Oconomowoc apparently did away with their weather sirens a couple years ago, and now they want to bring them back. It's going to cost the city $26,000 for each unit to bring it back. So we already have the infrastructure in place. Replacing a siren and a motor is a lot cheaper than $26,000 if you decide to bring them back, if you dismantle them.
Do you know the backstory? Why they brought them back?
I didn't get into it with them. I can find that out for you if you want.
No, that's all right. I don't know. I'm just of the opinion that this is an antiquated technology and we're looking for ways to cut budgets. This is a good way, in my opinion, to do it. I wouldn't support this.
Further discussion. Trustee Kaminsky.
It's a grant we're applying for. I mean, yes, we like applying for grants. I mean, I think this would be awesome if we could get this. And I don't want to beat the dead horse again about how we all feel about sirens. But I was thinking about that today when I was out at my barn way far in the backyard. I don't take my cell phone with me when I'm working in the yard. I mean, I think sirens are great and I see no reason not to pursue a grant. If we get it, great. If we don't, we know our answer.
Further discussion. Trustee Jan Miller.
I'm in support of this. Not only will it upgrade what we have, it makes it automatic to the weather, the national weather. You don't have to flip a switch or something. Can you explain that?
You set a radius on the unit as far as a 30-mile radius. So anytime severe weather comes into that 30-mile radius by the National Weather Service, it would activate the sirens.
That's good. Thank you.
Trustee Peeper.
So when these recent thunderstorms came through and I didn't get an alert on my phone, you know, like an Amber Alert type deal. But obviously my weather app sent me an alert of severe weather. So would it then activate the sirens?
It has different degrees of when you can activate them. So if it's just a storm coming through, and you want to activate them to that, you can set it to go off during that, or you can bypass that and only severe high winds, or tornado possibilities, you can set it for that.
So how is it set off daily for the noon for 12 o'clock when it's set off daily? Do we have to do that manually
Correct. The fire department has somebody do that manually.
every day at 12 o'clock?
Correct.
I don't feel like that is a good use of our resources to make sure that somebody's at the fire department every day at noon to set them off. You guys know my thoughts on this. I've done more research than any of you here, I can guarantee you, on these weather sirens. I've put in at least 12 hours of pure research on these sirens. I can tell you every fact and everything. I was the one that found this grant, for Pete's sake. I'm the one that made everybody aware that there was a FEMA grant out there. I still don't support the sirens. Terry, when you're out back by your horses and you don't have your phone, you know what you can do? Look up at the sky.
Further discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Can you raise your hands, please? For 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. Moving on to, we don't have any unfinished business. We don't have any public hearings. New business. Item A, discussion on ATV and UTV use on village roads. Trustee Rick Miller.
Here on the console.
Oh, up here.
Oh, there.
Just it.
Yep. Turn.
There we go.
All right, you know me, I'm Rick Miller, trustee of District 2. I'm also an ATV user and I ride recreationally and around my yard to use it for utility. I'm bringing this up because there's been a lot of adoption to ATV routes in the surrounding communities to us. They're increasing in popularity. There's interest from the residents. I see some residents here that are interested in getting this passed. And there are legal requirements to operate an ATV on the road. It isn't just a free-for-all. And there are statistics that show it's safe. I forgot to mention that I do have Tim Rohr here. Tim is the president of Kettle Moraine ATV Association and also on the board of the Wisconsin ATV Association, correct? And he will provide some more answers later on. Also, the ATV, the Wisconsin Outdoor Recreation Department or organization in Wisconsin did an economic impact, and it's a direct impact of $4.2 billion to the state in 2023. That's in equipment, $3 billion to the state in 1 year. So I'll go over a couple of the items here. What's an ATV? All-terrain vehicle. That's something you sit on. It was like a motorcycle. It's now 4 wheels. Some of them are still 3 wheels. I had a 3-wheeler when I was growing up. But there are some specs that go around with that. Most of what you see now are utility vehicles. utility terrain vehicles. They're four-wheel, enclosed cabs, have a cage around them, have seat belts, etc. And those are also required to be on the road. Who can operate on ATV routes legally? Because there's been a lot of talk about illegal happenings here, so I want to separate that. Legally, ATV must be registered in the state of Wisconsin with the, with the state. They have to have stickers on them and the plates and all that stuff. If you are born on or after January 1st, 1988, you must have a completion in the ATV UTV safety certification course in order to operate. You can operate between 12 and 15 years old, but they have to be accompanied by an adult. 16 years old and older can operate unaccompanied, and under 18, you have to wear a helmet. Small ATVs are not allowed. Who can operate a utility vehicle? Pretty much the same rules, except that you have to be 16 years old to operate it. Okay. So what roads can become an ATV route? And that's the key here. What can become an ATV route? What's allowed and what's not allowed? Any municipal controlled road can become an ATV route. Any county highway. The Washington County said that if the municipality has an ATV ordinance, that the county roads are available. State highways with a speed limit of 35 miles per hour or less are okay. And any roads adjacent to a jurisdiction that has an ATV route already. What does that mean? Richfield has an ATV jurisdiction or authorization already, so anything adjacent to that, Town of Jackson, same thing. What can't become an ATV route? Federal highways. State highways with speed limit higher than 35 miles an hour. And any roads adjacent to jurisdictions without ATV routes. So as an example, County Line Road, Wasaki Road cannot become ATV routes because the adjacent communities are not. And currently the Town of Germantown does not have an ordinance, so anything adjacent to the Town of Germantown cannot become ATV. So what's the steps for approval? We presented this to the Public Safety Committee already, and they had a discussion of it and said that, you know, there's enough to send it to the village board for discussion as well. So that's where we're at tonight. The next step for the village board, if there's enough people in favor of it, we would direct staff to create the ordinance, the code, in order to adopt an ATV route. And then one of the last things is to do the signage. Now, in the past communities, all that has been donated. There hasn't been any municipal funds used for the signage. And we intend to do that here as well. So what's available right now that, you know, what's authorized to be on a road? Bicycles, obviously. Trikes, recumbent bikes, e-bikes. Trustee Warren, I wish I'd had a picture of you on one, but I didn't. Scooters, mopeds. I ride my moped all over town. There's a Ruckus, Honda Ruckus, just a little bit bigger moped, but still 50 cc's. Obviously motorcycles, adventure bikes, used to be motocross. What do they call them? Enduros. Now it's adventure bikes. Ninja racers, Can-Am Rikers or three-wheelers, all can be licensed. Spiders, Polaris Spiders can be licensed. Slow-moving vehicles, Model Ts, can be authorized on the road. Tractors, combines, dune buggies can all be authorized to go on the road. And believe it or not, low-speed vehicles. If the speed is under 35 miles an hour, that can be a licensed vehicle in Wisconsin. So there's a lot of vehicles already authorized to be used on the roads. In the packet, I put a bunch of municipal code links on there. Everybody around us, Village of Richfield, Town of Jackson, Hartford, Erin, everybody who's really adopted it, you can look at their codes if you want to. It does vary somewhat. There's also informational links in there to the Wisconsin statute, the DNR, the DOT, Washington County's code, and then links to the ATV associations, the Wisconsin one and our local one, Kettle Moraine. This might be a little difficult to see, but it stands out. Anything in red is not authorized to be an ATV route. Anything in yellow could possibly be an ATV route, but right now jurisdictional boundary, and it cannot be. So if the laws change in, let's say, Mequon or the town of Germantown, we could open up a few more roads for that as well. So with that, I'll entertain discussion. Tim, if you want to talk, I'd actually like to bring Tim Rohr up here a little bit and talk about the safety of this. Again, there's a lot of information in our packets tonight that I'm not going to go over. This was just a presentation, so you can come up.
And press the button in front of you. The light goes off. Perfect.
Are we on? Okay. First of all, thank you for having me. As Rick said, I'm the president of the Kettle Moraine ATV Association, the local club in the area. I am also on the board of directors for the Wisconsin ATV Association, the statewide association, if you will. One of the main questions we typically are asked is about, typically it's the fatality side of things, because that is something that is easily found on DNR website and so on and so forth. You get beyond that and it gets a lot more difficult to find information and so on and so forth. So a lot of times we're confronted with the fatality side of things. So in the past 11 years, since 2015, there have been 335 deaths. Now, that's 11 years almost, but let's round that down to just say 10 years. On average, that's 33 fatalities a year. One is too many. I will be the first one to admit that. You know, we don't want to see anybody in our sport injured or killed or anything like that. I've been in the process of doing what I would consider kind of a deep dive into the fatalities that specifically are related to the road routes. Because in Wisconsin, right now, there's over 65,000 miles of road routes legal in Wisconsin for ATVs and UTVs. There's about 2,000 or so of trail for ATVs and UTVs. There are 527,000 plus machines registered in Wisconsin. Try to get that many machines strictly on a trail system, you know, of 2,000 miles, you're going to have lots and lots of problems. So over the years, as the machines have developed into the utility side and into more of a, if you will, a car type look or whatever you want to call it, the roads have just exploded in Wisconsin. And in looking at that, there have been a lot of fatalities on the road routes, okay, on roads. It could be legal road routes, it could be illegal road routes. But if you really do a deep dive into it, so far, and I haven't looked at every single thing through it, you know, everything, but only about 5 or 6 have been involving other automobiles or motor vehicles. Okay. About 60% of the fatalities do happen on road routes. There's 65,000 miles converted to 2,000 miles of trail. So when we start looking at all that, a lot of times we get confronted with, well, that's a lot of fatalities on the roadways. Okay. If you're just looking at numbers specifically, I would agree with you 100%. The problem is if you start looking at what really, I guess, caused the fatalities, okay, it was the vast majority of them are drifting off the roadway, swerving abruptly or overcorrecting in the steering, loss of control, left the roadway, hit maybe a tree or a mailbox or a utility pole or whatever. failure to negotiate a curve, medical reasons, collisions with animals up north, deer, bear, dogs, things like that. If you happen to think about all those reasons, if you will, I would bet you will find all of those, if not every single one of them, in automobiles also. And it's just because of the location and so on and so forth. I'll add something that Rick didn't mention. We get hit a lot of times with, okay, yeah, these are fine, you know, just in up north or, you know, that kind of thing. Lake Delton and Wisconsin Dells actually have a road ordinance, both communities. And from what I can find, give or take, depending on what you look at, it's estimated that there's 5 million people that go to basically the Wisconsin Dells area every summer. And as far as I know, they haven't had any issues whatsoever. The last thing that I'll just mention is I have one, obviously. I love riding it. I love getting out on a nice fall day or winter day or summer day, whatever, and just having a nice little ride. But I also use mine to run to the gas station, get gas for my snow blowers, my lawnmowers, things like that. I don't have to put the gas in my car. I can do that. The other thing, and I've talked to Rick about this, is I'll run to Walmart to get groceries or get something. I have two that are fairly close to where I live. One in the city of West Bend, one in the city of Hartford. I'll actually jump in my machine and go to the city of Hartford and spend my money at that one because I can legally get to that Walmart with my machine and I can just enjoy the day. I can flip the windshield up. I can, you know, just do that instead of hopping in my car and, you know, it's just the old everyday running. So the economic impact side of things, I would agree with. I think there is a portion of that. I know other people that own them and they do the same thing. You know, they hop in their machine and they go to a place that they can get to versus hopping in their car and going to some place that they can't get to with their ATV or UTV. Anything that I missed?
No, I don't think so. Thank you for that. I did want to mention though that Tim and I have met with Chief Merton on this and did a long discussion on it prior to considering this. And Chief, I hope I'm not speaking for you, but you are in favor of this. It's okay. And village wide.
I just did some checking with municipalities around us, Washington County, Hartford. I talked with them and see if they had any problems with them. Since they've had the UTVs or ATVs and legalized, Hartford had one violation, which was an OWI. They enforced it. Washington County, they couldn't remember any problems that they've had. So I don't think there will be a big problem as far as enforcement. I think letting the public know the law is the big issue that we're going to have to get out.
Great, thank you. And I am going to take my seat again and we can discuss.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion so we can get to discussion.
This was put on, yeah,
No vote?
that was literally my question is why was this put on for discussion
There you go.
only?
Is it discussion?
Yes, it is discussion only. Like who did that? Why?
The committee.
To put it on for discussion only?
Okay, that's all right.
Discussion.
That was not.
Trustee Kaminsky.
A couple questions. Trustee Kitts, was this at the Public Safety Committee? Was there a vote on this to send it to the village board? And if so, what was the vote?
Yeah, yes, we, both trustee Pieper and myself say that we would support this. Trustee Baum does not, but we said to move it forward to village board for discussion.
Okay. And then I did have just a few questions. There's a lot of information here. But I was against this when it came up, what, 3 years ago? And my reason for being against it was we're no longer a sleepy little rural village. I imagine they have ATV, do they have ATV routes in Menominee Falls?
Menominee Falls, I don't believe so.
There are
Or Mequon?
Hartford is completely open,
Well-
100%. Richfield is open, Town of Erin is open, Town of Jackson is open.
Okay.
So there's only a few in Washington County. I don't know about all of Waukesha County.
We are rapidly approaching the busyness of a Menominee Falls with our development in this community. You just look around at the subdivisions that are going up and the number of people moving in with 2 cars, maybe an ATV, I don't know. But my concern is just probably deepened a little bit in the past 3 or 4 years because of our growth. And I would not want to be somebody running one of these people off the road. I mean, I assume they can go 50 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, and that they keep up with traffic, which would be great. But I have misgivings about this. I continue to, because we're even bigger and more developed now than we were 3, 4 years ago when we looked at this same issue. I guess the rest of this is pretty much just like driving a car. It looks like more than half of the people who got in accidents were drunk or on drugs. I don't know if that's the same with autos, but I imagine it's similar. The difference here for me is like snowmobiles, I think are great because they stay off the roads. This is something that is going to place other drivers, I think, in conflict. I sure as heck don't want some guy U-turning in front of me and I T-bone him and he's drunk or something, because that's me. Then that's my problem. I've just hurt somebody or killed somebody. I have a problem with this and I'm not going to support it.
Trustee Pieper.
Terry, I just want to actually hear your concerns and make sure that I'm getting them. No, well, I'm saying, I want to, I guess, your biggest concern is hitting somebody who's drunk on an ATV?
No, my biggest concern is we are more developed now than we were 4 years ago when I voted against this. We're a bigger village now. Go try to sell this to Menominee Falls or to Mequon and come back and tell me you're able to do it. They're like us, very developed.
So I'm not a sleepy rural community. I'm looking for your actual concerns though, like, but what is, I'm not hearing the actual concern.
We're too busy for it.
So what is the problem?
Safety issue.
How?
Well, can you imagine this in Menominee Falls?
Menominee Falls actually does have ATV routes.
Where?
In the more rural part, yes, true.
Okay. How about Mequon? I'm not going to support it, Jolene. I mean, you could sit here, I'm telling you what my concern is, and I'm not going to say another word.
I'm not.
I think we know.
asking you to support it. I'm trying to understand the actual concerns.
Can't help it if you can't understand.
How can it be a safety concern?
Trustee Pieper, I think we understand Trustee Kaminsky's concern. She's going to vote no. So do you have any thoughts on?
No, I'm just trying to hear what the trustees think. I'm not asking to change your mind. I'm just trying to figure out what the root of the concern is.
Okay. Trustee Rick Miller.
But that's it.
Well, there's other people that want to talk as well, but that's one of the reasons that I put those pictures up of what is authorized to be utilized on a road. There's many things that are much more dangerous on the road than an ATV. My moped, I feel much safer in my ATV than I do on my moped, but I still drive that all over town.
Yeah, I had a Harley, I have an e-bike, and, I'm supportive of this. I would just ask when this does get back to the village board for further discussion and action that we include it on all routes within the village, because I want to go out and get one. So, and I live in the southeastern portion of the village. So, Trustee Bob Warren.
I have just a couple of observations. I don't own an ATV. So I don't know if you use them in the winter, I assume. All year round. So in the winter, do they overlap sometimes with snowmobile routes? Because I know sometimes snowmobiles get on the roads, or they certainly cross the roads. There's no overlap like that? Nothing like that?
I can kind of address that. So if there is a snowmobile route, would you take an ATV on a snowmobile route in winter? No, you're going to rip up the path. You're going to create ruts in it if you take an ATV on it in winter, in snow. then it would be strictly snowmobile. But can you take an ATV on a snowmobile route in summer when there isn't, of course, yes, and it's not going to rip it up unless it's raining.
Okay,
So yes, they can be duly used.
thank you for that. I think it's like anything else, it's getting used to it. What I'm used to is down in the villages in Florida were golf carts, and you didn't mention golf carts on the roads. Yes, where golf carts are the main mode of transportation. In fact, the infrastructure is modified. The roads are modified for golf carts, and they put a little garage on your house just for your golf carts. So that's the extreme end of it. But I think once the ATVers get used to the road system and the cars, the Germantown residents get used to that, I think everything will be fine. So I would support this.
Yeah, and again, getting back to what our police chief mentioned, it's a non-issue in Washington County. And I think if this does move forward and is approved, people within the village are responsible adults. And if they're not, then we've got a wonderful police department that will issue citations. And based on the report out we just had, 1 or 2 within Washington County. So it's really a non-issue. So Trustee Baum.
Yeah, I voted against this at Public Safety. We are a first ring suburb of Milwaukee. Milwaukee is expanding out. As Trustee Kaminsky said, we are expanding. You're not going to see this happen in Milwaukee. There's just too much going on. There's too much craziness on the roads in Milwaukee. That is starting to come out here. I've listened to our residents in the front row complaining that they don't want any more cars on the road just because of our development. Bringing another type of vehicle is problematic for me. I've had discussions with the police chief about some of these other vehicles some that I haven't talked to the police chief about. I saw some kids on this unicycle thing.
Yeah.
It's a board with a big wheel in it, and they go about 40 miles an hour, and they were hauling ass down Pilgrim Road one day. Well, that is not supposed to be on the road. These electric bikes, are they allowed to be on the road or are they not allowed to be on the road? We don't know. There's too many of these odd vehicles happening. Just because we are so close to Milwaukee, I don't see us pulling back on this if we move it forward. If you go ahead and grant it and say we do it north of Freistadt Road, okay, when we start developing north of Freistadt Road, when we get more stuff up at Holy Hill and that area that's north of Freistadt Road, that's going to be busy too. That's going to have all the traffic. That's going to have more of the concerns. Are you going to say, okay, now we got to stop there? The other issue I have is, are there any actual trails, ATV trails in Germantown? We have a map showing those.
ATV trails can be used as the
Snowmobile trails, I see them posted during the winter time, but I never see anything in the summer because usually I'm seeing them go through a farm field and the farmer's got his crops planted, so the snowmobiles aren't running during that time of the year. And I've stated this before, I have seen some crazy stuff on my road with just the younger people not paying attention. And if those kids are going to be playing in this village center on Mequon and Pilgrim Road, they know how to be responsible in our neighborhood out in the country. I have a problem with them going into town.
Trustee Paper.
I'd just like to point out that Menominee Falls has double our population, and Hartford only has 4,000 people less than Germantown, and Hartford hasn't had any problems with the ATVs. Not to mention that Highway 60 is the busiest part of Hartford and frequently has ATV traffic on it without problems per the police. Way more traffic than even Mequon Road.
I'm not quite sure why we keep dividing the village between the north and south. I think the community needs to be together on this one, and I think it needs to be village-wide.
Trustee Borst.
Yep, I do this as well. I see a positive impact on economic development. I think that it could keep Germantown residents in Germantown for dining events and other things like that. I also do think, according to 2050 plans and things like that, it keeps the rural feel. I do want to address some of the concerns regarding public safety and roads. I think that if this was to pass, I think just some check-ins with Chief Burton, with DPW on a regular basis in the Public Safety Committee could be helpful in communicating, bridging that gap.
Trustee Warren.
Just one other point, we talked about traffic and the concern with too much traffic. Well, just remember, every ATV that's on the road is one less car that's on the road. So you could, to a point, that will relieve some of your car traffic because somebody chose to take the ATV. And the other option I'd like to have, kind of tying into checking in with the police department on this, that we have the right to amend the routes that are chosen because of whatever reasons, accidents or whatever, but I'd like to have that option to be able to modify the initial routes that we would end up with.
Yeah, again, if this does move forward, Trustee Cutts and her committee, Public Safety, will be one of the report outs that the chief will have, and they'll be, from a governance standpoint, monitoring it month over month, and if there's an issue, it'll come to us for resolution. Trustee Pieper.
Can I request that staff put this on the next village board meeting agenda, not as discussion only, and
We'll do that.
list it as action? Thank you.
We'll do that. Trustee Jan Miller.
I just like to weigh in, and I think I would like to see a map of all of Germantown, all of the routes that are the roads that, I mean, you showed it, that the red you can't drive on with an ATV, UTV, but you have to take it out. I feel like you have to take it out to the other counties, because you're saying we can't do Woosaki, we can't do Woosaki, we can't do County Line. So now you're cutting yourself off from Menominee Falls, Mequon,
Across the street, you can't ride on it.
I have the floor. And so that way you can see where the gaps are. And it reminds me of our trails. We have trails that stop and start. You can't really walk to all of the different, let's just say village parks, from park to park to park, without crossing a major highway or not having a connected trail. So I think the connectivity of that, in order to expand the economic development of Germantown, is important. So that's my observation. Also, my other observation is looking at the websites that you listed, Rick, with the actual villages that do have the ATV, UTV availability. Richfield is 11,000 something, Jackson's almost 8, Kewaskum is 8, Slinger is 9. I don't even know if Slinger has ATV. They don't. Okay. And Germantown is 22,000, call it. We're just shy of 22,000. So of those, they are, they're all north of here, and I get that. I really don't want to see ATV, UTV on County Line Road ever. I don't ever want to see them on Pilgrim. It is so congested, and we're so backed up. So I know that probably everybody on this board is a really good driver and safety first. We would like to think that, but the village is getting bigger, and unless it's going north and staying north, these vehicles, where there are, if you look at the map, there's a lot of green space. There are properties that are over 5 acres. I think it really makes sense. But having you could call Germantown, the southern part of it, we're smaller lots. We're half acre, maybe 3/4, maybe an acre. So they're smaller lots. The advantage to having an ATV or UTV in your garage is probably lower. I'm just saying. So for that reason, I need more information about safety and the fact that there are 33 deaths a year. Is that correct? Approximately, you know, if you took it over that time. For whatever reason, it's concerning to me. So for those reasons, I'm not really for it. And I would like more information before it's brought back to the board. And I'd recommend we bring it back to the board, it's after the first of the year.
Yeah, we'll bring it back to the board on the November 17th village board meeting. Again, I live in Treetop, southeast corner of the village, and if this does move forward, I would welcome it because I would drive through very carefully within the speed limit through Treetops by your house, Jan. Get on Donges Bay, turn left, go up Pilgrim Road to go to Ace Hardware to buy some stuff. I'll go to Relish for a fine dinner. I may go to the beer stube. Then I'll come back home. I'm not going to be driving crazy. I'll be a responsible adult. And in the unlikely event that I err off the side of judgment, I'm sure our fine police department will issue a citation to me. So I think this is another opportunity that will attract more people to the village to live, work, and play. And I love this idea. And I want to thank Trustee Rick Miller for doing this. Further discussion. Trustee McCutts.
I like this because I do like the ruralness of Germantown, and I don't like how much we're losing of it or farmland. I'd like to see more of that. I also think that the majority of people that have these vehicles are going to be responsible, just like cars or motorcycles or any other vehicle. And if we're going to look at numbers of 33 deaths a year, then we should compare to how many car deaths a year there are and look at that. I don't, you're always going to have some people who are going to drive crazy or break the rules. That just goes with anything. But I think it will add just to Germantown to keep some of the rural character, could help the local businesses draw in more. So all in all, I think it's a good thing.
Further discussion. Okay, great conversation. Trustee Rick Miller, thank you so much. Thank you so much for our guest for speaking tonight. Wish you the best. We're now moving on to item B, update on the 2026 proposed budget discussion. Floor is yours, Matthew.
Thank you and good evening. In your packet was an updated memo on the current state of the 2026 budget. I won't go through it line by line, but I'll hit some of the highlights here. The village had several committee meetings where each committee reviewed the departmental budgets and made recommended changes. At the committee of the whole meeting, the village board acted on those changes as well as made additional changes to the 2026 budget. At the October 8th meeting, the village board allocated roughly $170,000 in state transportation aids, as well as reduced the capital budget by about $240,000. At the October 4th committee of the whole meeting, the village board reduced the general fund budget by roughly $30,000 and reallocated some of the capital projects back to the general fund and out of the debt issuance. As a result, the 2026 general fund budget has a total budget of about $22.84 million, up 3.5% over the 2025 adopted budget. What does that mean for the village tax rate? So the village tax rate will be about $4.54 per $1,000 of assessed value. So the average resident can expect the village portion of their tax bill to go up by about $25 this coming December. More than half of that is allocated to public safety, 55%, with the next highest department at Public Works of 26%, or just under $6 million. In addition, the village is planning major capital projects in 2026. That includes $3 million for Division Road, $1.6 million for the annual road program, $6.5 million for Fire Station 2 renovation, and $3 million for a PD building design. Those capital projects will impact the 2027 tax bill. Based on early estimates, that will be roughly $195 on the average homeowner. Residents will still have many opportunities to discuss the village budget They're encouraged to reach out to their trustees directly or village staff with any questions they have on the 26 budget. At the November 17th meeting, the village board will have a public hearing on the 2026 budget where they will formally adopt the budget as well as the associated tax levy for that budget. Following the adoption of the budget, we will issue the tax bills and residents can expect them to come out early to mid-December. In addition, following the completion of the budget, we're planning on doing a 5-year forecasting for the village board, where we'll look at major revenues and expenditures over the next 5 years and how that'll affect village finances, the tax levy, and ultimately the tax bills. In addition, we're looking at different revenue options for the village, one of those being a pilot program for some of the folks who are exempt from property taxes, but still rely heavily on village services. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Matthew? And I know you're working on a couple other reports too, net new construction forecast going out 5 years based on the current trend.
Yep.
And also a report on payment in lieu of taxes for our nonprofits and our profits.
Correct.
On what they're doing, are they what type of fees are they paying year over year, that type of thing. So
Yep, and that'll all be as part of our 5-year forecasting that we're planning to present sometime in December.
great. Any questions for Matthew? Trustee Jan Miller.
Matthew, we, in our last meeting, trustee Pieper found over $24,000. And we're going to take some items off the borrowing.
Correct. The motion was to allocate that $25,000 out of capital and back into the general fund.
So what,
We moved the DPW scissors lift out of the capital fund into the general fund. That cost was $25,000. So we just reallocated that out of the capital fund and back into the general fund.
and that was the only item?
Yes.
Further questions, discussion? Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
We are now on to item C, estimated cost to construct a new police station on the site of the former Public Works building, and this is for discussion and action. Mr. Krecklow.
Okay, thank you. At the last Public Safety Committee meeting, the Public Safety Committee referred this to the village board, but asked that we provide some additional information, which is in the packet, and I'm going to provide an overview of that tonight. First of all, a summary of the 2024 study, which I'll be going through. You may recall that was actually just about a year ago when the staff and the Grafe PRA Moore team submitted the results of a 2024 study on new police and fire facilities. They also asked for some additional information on the former Quick Trip site, which I'll be going through. They requested a heat map of police calls, and I think when we get to that slide, suggest that Chief Merton come up and talk about their locational needs and preferences and how that fits in. They asked for an estimated cost of what it would take to renovate and expand the current site so an estimate to get a cost estimate for renovation, expansion of the current site. A map of all village-owned sites, which is included in the packet, a map of properties for sale, and then how much it would cost, what the process would look like, and what the cost would be to review or select a different site that hasn't been considered yet at this point. So let me begin with a summary of the 2024 study. And begin by saying this was a lengthy study. Took, I believe, about 6 months from beginning to end that looked at both police and fire and a combined public safety facility. It involved several meetings, both with police staff and fire staff to try to identify how much space was going to be necessary, kind of a rough configuration or a rough geometry of the building, so that that could be considered what sites would work and what sites wouldn't. It did look at locational needs, both for fire and police, and what would work and what wouldn't work. We did look at, as staff was involved, we looked at several potential locations within the village. There were 3 that Grafe looked at in more detail. The former DPW site, the former Quick Trip site, and the former Ben's Oil site down on Donges Bay. The result of that for the police department was that the consultant and staff recommend 64,000 square foot facility on the former DPW site. And when I say staff, that's not just me, that's the public works director and the police chief and the police staff. That was the recommendation. We did take another look at the old Quick Trip parcel. This was previously evaluated, that now the Grafe PRA Moore team determined that it was too small for the facility, the size of the facility that the police department was looking at, that we would need at least 5 acres. They also identified some potential geotechnical bedrock issues with that site. Recommended a phase 1 environmental assessment. And then there were some concerns raised about Maple Road access but water and sewer is available on that site. I see Trustee Pieper has a question. Just wanted to finish up just some additional information. What they didn't evaluate at that time is that Quick Trip does own the parcel to the south of the old gas station, which does increase the size. You can see that here, that's some additional space. So it's closer to the size. We did not, no, we haven't taken an engineering look at this, or an architectural look to see if the police building could possibly be reshaped or reconfigured to fit that site. It is possible. That is something that would need some additional analysis and review to determine if it would. I would say that just on review of it, and the public works director and the police chief are here if you'd like to get their opinions as well, but that it might be a bit of a stretch to try to fit the building onto and the operations onto an odd shaped lot like that. The other issue that's also maybe more significant is is Commerce Road, goes through the middle of that. That is currently a privately owned road. And it goes in the middle between the 2 sites. Obviously, closing that road would have a significant negative impact on the businesses further down the street: Best Western, Habitat for Humanity, Restore, Grand Appliances, and some others. There is another entrance further south on Maple Road, but it's not as convenient, and that road itself is a private road, and it would possibly need some reconfiguration if it was going to be used for the businesses on that street. And then again, looking at the site configuration, we did not do a full engineering analysis of this, but it would be, I think, a challenge to try to reroute that road in a way that provided easy access to the businesses without interfering with police department operations.
Trustee Pieper.
I just want to ask a quick question. Don't we own some property on Maple Road? Don't we own that other parcel here?
I'm looking at the public works director. I don't think.
We do, it's almost all wetland though, I think.
I think further south on Maple Road, there is some land that we own. That's all wetland.
It's not the parcel right here? No, the blue one we don't own, but the one next to the blue one here. Because I know we own several parcels on Maple Road.
Yes, there are some.
And I understand they're mostly wetland, but they're not all wetland.
I think they are. I mean, almost all.
Road is not that long, so how far away from Quick Trip are those parcels that we own?
Well, we do have a slide coming up that shows village-owned parcels.
Okay.
Come back to that
All
one
right.
there.
So are you saying if we went down the path of putting the police station here, we would have to have a workaround on Commerce Circle because it's a privately owned road?
Yes, there would have to be some
it?
rerouting of that road.
Who owns it? Who?
Well, right now, each section is owned by the adjacent property owner. So Quick Trip owns the sections that are highlighted in this map. And then each property owner owns the portion adjacent to their, to
Interesting.
their
Okay.
land.
Neither did I.
So they would own, like, whoever buys Quick Trip and this blue parcel, they would own that road as well. That
Correct.
portion of that road.
Correct.
Interesting.
Excuse me.
So here is a heat map of the police calls, or I'm sorry.
Road question.
Yeah.
Is the village of Germantown plowing this frontage road? We don't plow it. Oh, interesting.
So there are two quick maps, locational here, and then I'll ask Chief Martin to talk about locational decisions. First, this is, and we can flip back and forth between these as necessary. This is just a heat map of police calls. I think the data kind of speaks for itself. And then this was a map that was prepared in the first study for potential locations, which shows the response time from the former DPW site to various sections of the village. So I guess I'd like to ask Chief Martin to come up and talk about the way the police department sees the locational decision.
Locational decision isn't as big a deal with the police department as with the fire department. We're out on the road most of the time, patrolling. However, we do on occasions come back for reports, processing of criminals, roll calls, and breaks they come back for. But the majority of the time they're on the road. You obviously can see the majority of our calls are in the southeast part of the village. That's not saying that they're high-risk calls or emergency calls. It's just a general of all the calls we've gone on. I can say that a lot of the emergency, like our lights and siren calls, are more towards the freeway or highway Q area. We do have rescue calls, family troubles that happen in the more populated areas, but for the high-risk ones, we're basically going towards the freeway or to highway Q. So the placement of the police department, I was just looking through some brochures from when the police department was built in 1982. It was in a farm field. And look at what it is 43 years later. 24 years ago when I started here, none of the subdivisions were on highway Q. So I guess trying to build the police department close to where all the calls are is probably a bad idea. You should look for something outside of that because everything's going to grow around it.
Questions for the chief? Okay.
All right. Then I'll move on. So one of the next pieces of information they requested was a cost estimate to renovate and expand the current police station. And this was actually an estimate that the Graves PRA Moore team gave and we presented to the Public Safety Committee in July. But I believe the number is still adequate that they could provide some initial review and feedback and cost estimates of the feasibility, kind of a logistics or staging plan that would be necessary, and then a cost estimate to renovate and expand the police station at its current location. So, and that would be $14,300 to do that. So that is an option that the village board would have to get additional information and see how much it would cost to make that happen. I'll make an editorial comment on that based on the discussions with the police chief and the public works director, I think this would be a very challenging option, not to say that it couldn't be done. I think that it might also impact the library and other village hall operations. I think that one of the things we would probably want to look at if this option was chosen was to would be to extend a driveway behind Village Hall out to Division Road. I know one of the complaints that we get frequently from residents are police cars that are exiting and then going south out of the police station into some of those residential neighborhoods. So I think creating a driveway for the police department to get over to Division directly would help alleviate some of those issues. So this is an option that we could look at. The cost would be $14,300 to.
Steve, can I ask you to come back up here? And I apologize, but you're getting your exercise tonight. This could be a viable option. And if the board decides to go down this path, I know it would be kind of like a shell game. You would be out of one location while they raise that, they construct, and you would have to move your team offsite someplace. And we could figure out where that would be. And then once the newly constructed building is built, you would do the same, you would raise the other building and then combine the two. My question for you is, you're still a city center. Could this be a viable option for you? If the DBW, because I've got some heartburn relative to spending $2 million for water and sewage going up there. That's my issue.
It could be an option. Things we'd have to look at is if it would fit on the property and we would be able to still do our day-to-day operations. We can't just start tearing down both buildings and reconstructing them. We would have to remain one building and then take the other one down and build it. And if there is enough room there to build that, that's something that would have to be decided by the architects.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Question, Trustee Jan Miller.
Chief, do you know approximately, because Mr. Krecklow was talking about these estimates based on 64,000 square feet for the old DPW site, you know, as a public safety building. I don't know if that was when we were talking about public safety building or if that was just an exclusive police building, because 64,000 square feet sounds like a lot to me. Do you know?
That was just the police building, I believe, whatever was in the packet right now. I think it was more with the fire department. It was an additional, I forgot how many thousand.
Well, those three locations, the oil place, Ben's Oil, and the old DPW, I thought were for the public safety, both.
I don't
think
believe so.
The Public Works facility was, in the initial study, was recommended for a standalone police station. The Ben's Oil site was considered for a combined public safety facility. The Ben's Oil site is a little bit larger and had, the DPW site was not considered for a combined public safety facility because of, it's I think about a mile away from Fire Station 2. So the fire department locationally was looking, if they were going to have a second site, have that be further away. The Ben's Oil site was large enough and from the location perspective, able to accommodate a combined facility.
So, Chief, do you know how many square feet you cover right now that you have actually?
Between the two buildings?
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's three buildings, actually. It's the old library, the main PD, and then also the garage,
Oh, yeah, the garage.
along with another fourth building that's evidence garage.
Right, right.
So,
It's like a little farm.
yeah.
I don't recall the answer to the square footage question just off the top of my head. It is in
It's
the,
less, it would be
in the
less than
report.
64,000.
I think the explanation for the amount of square feet is number one, it includes, indoor storage for the vehicles and additional indoor storage for vehicles from what the current station has. And then the other thing that adds quite a bit in terms of square feet is a indoor shooting range and training facility for weapons training. And I think those two items add a fair amount of square footage to the building.
Okay, but it can be multiple stories.
Yeah, and and it probably would be on any of the locations we've been talking about.
Right.
That was one of the advantages of the Public Works site is that there's a grade there, so a two-story building would be built into the hill that exists there, and that, according to the Grave PRA Moore team, that reduces the construction cost by a significant
Well,
amount.
you can, going to a second and third story is always going to be a little bit more economical than doing, taking over the old library, which is one flat building, like a ranch style with a basement. So thank you.
Trustee Pieper.
Wouldn't it make sense if we were able to acquire both of those lots by the Quick Trip for you to have super quick access to County Line, super quick access to the freeway? You could make it multiple stories, but then also right where it is, there's no residential housing around it. Like, to me, the Quick Trip location is prime. It makes sense. It gets you to everywhere in your heat map that says you respond to, and most of the like emergencies are on 4145 or County Line Road. That gives you both quick access to both of those locations. And there's no residential, so you can, I mean, I don't mind I hear the sirens every single day, just because I'm right by the police station. I knew that when I was buying a house next to the police station. I'm not saying that I wouldn't necessarily miss them, but I think we only have two logical places to put this police station. It's either the old Quick Trip site or at the current location where the police station is giving them a new building there, or the Quick Trip. I don't know who keeps pushing this public works, but spending millions of dollars to get sewer and water out there is ridiculous. It's not feasible. That should be a little league field. That should be a sports center, not a police station.
Trustee Bob Warren.
Based on my vast knowledge of building police stations, I just think the staging of this, maintaining operations and then trying to build half of it is just going to increase the cost exponentially. And I don't know how our police force could work efficiently under those types of conditions. Second kind of side question is, what I know Grave PRA and Moore did a good job for the Public Works facility. Is that why we keep using them on this and then probably on the design? Is this going out? Are we going to RFP this, or why are we locked into this team all the time?
Well, what we're recommending, once there's a decision made to go forward with design, is to go through an RFP process. The reason that we keep bringing them involved with each one of these different iterations of the initial study is a cost savings. That if we were to start over with a different design team for this stage, I think we'd be duplicating a lot of the work that was done.
On the Public Works side, so we obviously own that property. If we had to purchase that property, how much would that cost roughly? A rough idea. I'm trying to compare it to the cost of bringing utilities to that site, and maybe the cost to purchase offsets that.
I mean, I think land in that area is going anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 per acre. That's probably 100,000 is a little bit further to the west, closer to the highway, but the land in that area is fairly expensive, and that is 10-acre site? Is it roughly 10 acres? So 50,000 times 10, it'd be $500,000 to purchase it. And the one thing that I would say is, and I understand the angst about the cost related to the sewer and water extension, but just I would advise the board to keep in mind that every site has related costs. You know, there was another site that didn't work out that we looked at that's just down the road here on Mequon Road. And that one, although you would think it would be easily connected to sewer and water, is not, and would require, we didn't run through what the cost estimates would be, but would require that sewer and water to be extended down the road to serve that property. So you know, when we purchased the land for the DPW building site, we had to extend sewer and water to that location. There were some wetlands issues we had to deal with. You know, some of the sites we looked at could have environmental issues. You know, every site has some costs and some issues, and I think it's important to look at the total cost and what that total cost is relative to other options.
Well, I think with this, the bringing utilities in should be also looked at as a catalyst for other development, like you were touching on. I'm not sure to the north or to the west of that what the opportunities are, but you got sewer there now. And that's how we started to get north of Frystad Road development there, because through the TIDS, we brought our services to the north. So this might be another opportunity in that regard.
I would say the opportunities, I think, are somewhat limited. There are some parcels along Division Road and along Freistadt that don't currently have access that would. But I think that those couple of parcels are probably the extent of it. That so both, if you see it as a positive, there's limits to how positive it could be for those people who think that development up there is a negative. I think there's limits on because of the design of the sewer system, which the Public Works Director could explain better than I can, and the boundaries of the sanitary sewer service area. There's limits to how far development could occur.
Can I ask a favor? We've got about 3 more slides left in the presentation. One on properties for sale and one on village-owned properties, and then we can open it up for discussion. So,
all right, the next slide here shows a map, and on the map there's a red line that looks at the boundaries of where we considered. I will say, and 98% of the time, but just worked very closely with Chief Martin. This probably goes a little bit further to the east than he would like, but we wanted to make sure we captured all possibilities. We looked at all lots that are for sale that are 5 acres or more, and those are highlighted in blue on this map. The only one, and it's just right on the edge of the parcel here, is the triangular piece of property that's for sale on the at the intersection of Fond du Lac Avenue and Mequon Road. And that would be of adequate size. I think the location is further east than the chief would prefer. It could potentially be a workable property if that was the direction of the village board. Also on this map, just for your information, in gray are all of the parcels 5 acres or larger that are not listed for sale, that are within the boundaries here, that would be large enough theoretically to accommodate the police station. So there's a large number of parcels that could potentially be looked at. Then here, this is a map of village-owned properties. They're highlighted in yellow. And within the boundaries here, there's park spaces, places where there's already village facilities, and then some wetland areas. But other than that, the village staff has reviewed each one of these and looked at the potential for location there. And none of these village-owned facilities, other than the DPW site, worked for that purpose. So then the final thing that that the Public Safety Committee asked for was just kind of outlining what a site search process would look like and what it would cost. The cost is really going to depend on how many properties we want to look at, how many we want to review, and that's really going to drive the cost. So it's not possible for me at this time to estimate that. And one of the questions would be, are we reviewing properties that are not currently for sale? And if that's the case, then we would probably want to or I shouldn't say probably, one of the options for the village board would be to hire a real estate broker to help approach those property owners and negotiate a price. I think, and again, I'm not suggesting that we stick necessarily with Grave PRA more through the design process, but I do think since they have all of the data that we've been looking at so far, we would want to utilize them to help evaluate those sites. So some of the criteria that we would want to involve would be, the access to call locations, the suitability of the neighborhood, the site geometry is important. A long, narrow site, for example, might not work really well for police operations, and then the cost. And should have included this in the slide, but the other thing that I wanted to point out is I think there's really two ways to approach this process and one way not to. And I'll talk about the one way not to first. When municipalities have conversations about buying property for purposes like this, it tends to be pretty typical for people to kind of come out of the woodwork and say, hey, I've got some land that I would be willing to sell, or I'm looking to do this with my property and I'd be willing to provide 5 acres for you if what I'm looking to do gets approved. And I think, I would just say, with all due respect to the board and to the public, we've been accused over the past couple of years of closed room negotiations and backdoor deals and all that kind of thing. And if we did that, that's what we would be doing. And that's my fear with that we would, if we don't have a formal process outline and we just take those ideas as one-offs, it's not as transparent to the public as it should be. So that leaves two approaches. And one is that we take a process where staff working with a consultant starts to look at different potential locations, going back to that map with those gray properties and looking at which ones might work and doing some analysis and narrowing that down to a list of, like we did with the Public Works building, of 3 to 5 properties that we could identify that would potentially work, and then start contacting those property owners and seeing where a deal can get worked out. The other approach would be to go out on our social media, our website, and say, hey, we're looking to buy some property. Here's our criteria. Tell us what you have and what you're offering it to us for. I think just either one of those approaches is potentially workable. Both will involve a fair amount of time and cost to complete. So I'm going to come back to staff recommendation, and this is not just me. This is the police chief, the public works director. Our recommendation is, for reasons that we've outlined a number of times before, is to issue an RFP for design of a new police facility on the former DPW building. And the last thing that I'll say before I finish up my presentation is that on my desk is I went through some old files. I've got a stack of proposals for design of a new police facility that were submitted to the village in 2007. And there's more than one right answer to where this police facility should be built and how it could be built. The public works facility, the old public works site, is a site that works, that we own, that we can control, that we know a lot about. There might be a better site out there. There might not be. But I guess my hope, and I think this comes from the whole village staff here, is that we're able to move forward with something in a little bit more timely manner than the board was able to in 2007.
Trustee Pieper.
What was presented in 2007, it was a proposal to build a new police station where the police station currently is?
Yes.
And how much was that? And what did it look like? Why is it not included in the package?
Well, first of all, we did address that to get a cost estimate. We need to go back to Grafe PRA Moore. I wasn't, what we had were proposals for design. I didn't see in that file any estimates of what the cost was at that time.
And in the proposal for design, was there anything displayed or communicated about the functionality of the police station while a new police station would be built?
I only looked through, there were about 8 proposals in the packet. I only looked through 2 or 3 of them. And they did not address any of those particular issues. It was more just about their experience designing police stations and their qualifications and background.
Okay, I'll make a motion to direct staff to issue an RFP for the design of a new police facility on the old Quick Trip site. And also, why, we should have posted it on our Facebook anyway. Of, you know, we're looking, this is how much land we're looking for. Why haven't we? Why haven't we put that on the village site in Facebook?
I don't buy land without the village board's direction.
Okay, well, I think it should be posted as well on our Facebook.
Trustee Pieper, can I make a recommendation, seeing
Yes.
that we don't know if even Quick Trip, that land is available? We may not want to make a motion.
Okay,
to
then I
identify
make a
that.
motion to direct staff to look into the Quick Trip building.
Yeah,
that-
we,
that
but
site.
we could do that. Okay, do we have a second?
I just don't, would you be willing to amend the motion to add the current police station? Fine, so done.
Yeah, that's a second.
Second.
May I ask for a clarification?
My addition, my amendment is to not only review the Quick Trip site, but also the current location of the police station.
So do we have a discussion with that? I'll just say that I will support that. I mean, I have no appetite going out and buying land. If we have land, and I would prefer, and I'm only one vote. I would prefer to construct a police station on village property. I would have no problem spending $14,000 to rule the current police station, rule that in or rule that out. But I would ask that as part of that RFP, it would include all the costs associated with doing that.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be some temporary relocation costs.
Yeah.
There's going to be, then those costs could be great. I'm not saying it's going to be as equal as $2 million for water and sewage, but I think we need to rule that in, rule that out as a viable site or not. So, and then we'll also find out if Quick Trip is available. So, Trustee Bob Warren.
Didn't staff just do this? That's why we've narrowed it down to an RFP
No.
for the current public works facility?
These were, the Quick Trip site was reviewed. I guess what we did not review when we looked at the Quick Trip site, the first study was the potential for relocating the road. And we did not have the information at that time about Quick Trip owning that other piece of land adjacent to it. So we would be going back and looking at that site for a second time.
You're digging into, getting more into the weeds now.
Yes.
And there's something I would have thought you would have done beforehand.
I think we didn't get into that depth of it because of the size of the Quick Trip location.
Yeah, what we don't want to do I apologize, Trustee Forrest. What we don't want to do is if Quick Trip, and they call it KT, by the way, for short, if the KT site is a viable option and that private road we take over because we need more acreage, we need to have a workaround for those hotels and other businesses that are on Commerce Circle. We just can't shut them off because that's not the right thing to do from a business standpoint. So I understand. But they have access on both ways today. So further discussion. Trustee Borst.
Yeah, I definitely support looking at all these options. I wasn't in favor of just the DPW building and being and having to vote on that. So I'm in support of looking at all these options, seeing which one is the most favorable and comparing the costs.
Mr. President, can I just clarify, now the cost of looking at the reconstruction of the existing police site was $14,300. I don't have a cost estimate for looking at the Quick Trip site. I'm going to assume it's something along those lines. Do I have direction from the village board to amend Grafe's contract to pay for those additional costs?
Are you still looking at the current police station site as well?
That was part of the motion.
But the $14,000 from Grave, in that proposal, were they gonna look at the DPW and also
The,
the
the,
current?
the $14,300 was to get a cost estimate and a feasibility analysis of the current police site.
Okay,
So I think it would probably be something similar
I'd be fine with that.
for the Quick Trip site.
I'd be fine with that.
Further discussion? Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, are we, with this vote, are we taking out the former DPW building now?
No, we're not.
That's still in play. That
It is.
is a possibility.
It is. The purpose of this vote is to rule in, rule out the current police site as a viable alternative.
And then look at the Quick Trip as a possible site as well.
Yeah, and we don't even know if it's for sale.
Well, I understand that, yeah.
So,
And the only thing I'm going to say about the old DPW building, which was the original Village Hall, is it was there because it was the geographical center of of Germantown.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty nice site. And I get that there's no water and sewer there and there's going to be costs involved, but we have to look at total cost here.
Mhm.
And this should be considered as a viable site.
Yep, and I agree. And if the current site is not viable, I'll support the old DPW site. Sorry, tongue tied. Trustee Jan Miller.
So just to be clear, we're looking at 3 sites.
Correct. Well, correct. We have 3 sites. We have 2 current village-owned sites. We're researching to see if the KT site is even available.
Right.
It may not even be available.
But they have to give us an estimate on the old DPW, the current police station property, and take a look at KT. Correct? Those 3.
We have an estimate for the old DPW site, so we only need estimates on 2 other sites at this point then.
Oh, what's the square footage? Is that 64,000?
For the old one, yes.
I believe that's correct. I'd have to look back in the packet and just make sure I got the right number.
Okay, but,
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
okay.
Thank you.
And what I don't want to do is further delay this. We're pressing the pause button right now to do further due diligence on the old police site or the current police site
Correct.
to see if it's a viable option to Trustee Rick Miller's standpoint, total cost. What's the total cost? And I think there's going to be additional costs associated with, from a logistics standpoint, on moving people off site, moving them back, that type of thing, and the disruption that may cause.
Sure,
Trustee Ward.
but
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jan.
I just want to make sure that when they give us this study, that this still goes out for an RFP. Thank you.
Trustee Bob Warren.
Could I ask staff, when they finish their analysis, if they could put it in a matrix? So we'd have Public Works, Quick Trip, and then the existing station, and listing all the criteria that we use to select a site. That way we can see each one, apples to apples here. That would be helpful for me.
We can do that.
And Trustee Cutts, do you mind if we put this back on the village board agenda rather than going through public safety so that we could move this
No,
forward?
we recommended coming forward to village board because I thought it was too much money for 4 of us to decide.
Okay.
That everybody should be talking about it.
Great, thank you. Further discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the table and a second to do further research on the current police site using Grafe, and then also to see if the KT site is available. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any roll call? That's right. Thank you. Roll call vote. Trustee Pieper, you didn't remind me about that.
I was
Sorry.
daydreaming for a second.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Cutts,
Aye.
trustee Baum, trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Borst,
Aye.
trustee Pieper.
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, and village president
Aye,
Seberg.
that motion carries. We are now on to, and thank you very much, Chief. We're now on to item D, draft request for proposals for design services for renovation and expansion of Fire Station 2. Mr. Kreklow.
I'll just introduce this real quickly, and we have the Public Works Director and Battalion Chief Riker Holmes from the Fire Department who can answer any more detailed questions you have. But this is on the Village Board agenda again this month. At a previous meeting in September, the board directed staff to move forward with the renovation and expansion of Fire Station 1. I'm sorry, Fire Station 2. And this is an RFP for design services. So, you know, to the question, are we going to continue to use Grafe again? We're not. Well, we're going to go out for RFP, whether they are successful in that or not, we'll see. But we are going out for an RFP process. The scope of the design services contract is consistent with what is in the 2026 proposed budget of $6.2 million.
All right, so I'm just gonna give a little bit of information on what the RFP is. It's based on an RFP that was conducted in another community and then tailored by Fire Department and Public Works staff into the document that was attached to the packet this evening. What it does is it sets up a three-phase design process where we would onboard the consultant. They would do a preliminary like schematic design to get approval on the concept and then advance that forward to full design and construction documents. And then they would stay on through construction doing construction management tasks. It intends to satisfy kind of this immediate 5-year need that we've been talking about and do that within the budgetary figures that have been discussed for the 2026 budget, which I believe is around $6.1 million. There will be, if we go forward with this RFP, another RFP process that will come fairly shortly after this for construction management services. But the idea is that we would onboard this consultant, get some of the preliminary design done, and then as they're approaching 30% or so in their design process, we'd have the construction manager available for costing purposes. And that way it would work similar to how the DPW building process worked. The timeline was laid out in the RFP. We'll have to adjust that because we didn't anticipate missing the meeting. But we'd want to move fairly quickly on this. So we'd take one more look at the RFP. We would issue it. We have kind of a group of firms that offered proposals for the study that Grafe Moore and PRA won. We can include them. We'll also obviously post this publicly so that any other consultants have the opportunity to submit proposals. But the idea would be to move through the process fairly quickly. And ideally, if everything worked out right, we could onboard the consultant kind of by that last meeting in December or very early in 2026. So I can take any questions about the RFP itself and what's in or not in the RFP. And then Battalion Chief Holmes can address any specific needs about the fire department.
Yeah, we're pulling up page 203, which shows the proposed project timeline, just for trustees and the audience awareness. And that will be pushed back a week or 2 weeks because about a week because of our last board meeting, or 2 weeks. So
correct,
it was canceled.
Yeah, so I think we'd estimated, you know, if everything went smoothly, we could onboard by December 8th. I think the first village board meeting in December is the 1st. So it'd be more like the 14th would be the second meeting. So that would be our kind of our new target for award. But that would allow us about 4 weeks to have this out on the street and receive proposals.
Any questions for Matt? Trustee Jan Miller.
Thanks for your explanation. So there's an RFP for the project and the design. Is that correct? That will go out first. That's what we're talking about right here. And then you're talking about having a separate RFP for the construction or project management,
Yeah, for the construction manager.
construction manager.
So that would be the firm that operates in a similar role that Moore Construction did during the DPW building.
Okay. Okay. And do you have an estimate of cost on that? Did you say 1.1 million was all of it, or did you say what?
On the design or on the construction?
Both. What is each one?
Well, we have the design dollars budgeted. I think it's roughly $500,000. That's just kind of off the cuff. And then, you know, we've done cost estimating with Grafe Moore and PRA to come up with the $6.1 million that's been part of the 2026 budget discussion. So that is the target construction cost.
Okay.
Further discussion. Trustee Baum.
Does anybody know what we're getting for 6 whatever million?
Yeah.
How elaborate is this? Is this the Taj Mahal? Is this a scrape it by? Does anybody know what we're getting?
Yeah, this is
Any images of what $6 million buys me?
generally what was presented, and it may end up looking somewhat different than the conceptual plans that were presented at the Public Safety Committee and to the village board back in September. But it is an expansion of living quarters, office space. It does not include an expansion of the bays, but it does. And actually, it includes the demolition of the Survival Live House, which, should the board choose at a future date to expand the bays or bring in additional storage site, could potentially accommodate that.
I'm less concerned about the plan as I am in the detailing of the building. So I can build a house for $300 a square foot. I can build a house for $100 a square foot. What am I getting for this $450 a square foot? That's what I'm trying to. If we've been given, here's images of what we can expect in this building, not that this is what it's going to look like, but here's the quality, here's the caliber. That's what $450,000 gets you. That's over the top. Bring me pictures of a $300 square foot building. None of us really understand what we're buying for $450 a square foot.
Could that be part of the RFP?
I believe there was discussion during public safety of two options. One was a build out on the east side, which would stop any bay expansion, and then the build out on the north side. And I believe the path we're going down is the north side. Is that accurate?
That is a plan view. We've seen the plan views. Are you doing gold-plated faucets? Are you doing Schlage hardware? Are you doing top-end hardware? Where are we going with the quality? That's what gets me the $450, not the floor plan. I want to know how elaborate is this thing? People are asking, is it gonna have tall ceilings? Can't we do short ceilings? That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I would say this was costed with sort of middle of the road public building furnishings. It's not an elaborate high end. In fact, really kind of the main components of the construction are the expansion for the sleeping area, the remodeling of the kitchen. So there's a legitimate commercial kitchen in there, properly supplying some training space that serves a short-term, like 5-year need. And then
Wasn't the
components of the
windows
building.
and HVAC in there too?
Yeah, components of the building that are required kind of regardless if we do the construction or not. We know that the building needs new windows. We know that there's environmental concerns with the mold that we've all discussed in the last couple of meeting cycles, where that would be addressed with some commercial HVAC. So those are the two other main components.
If the RFP gets approved tonight, that will come back to the village board for review and approval.
Yeah. Then the contract for the design services will come back to the board for review and approval.
Right. Yep. Further discussion. Trustee Warren.
So the last couple of weeks, I had the pleasure of hanging with the fire department about 3 times. At the open house, I got 2 tours of the facility by Chief Delane and Battalion Chief Holmes. Thank you for that. And it was pretty impactful as far as what they're doing with that space. And none of the rooms that were designed for a particular use are being used for that use anymore. So, well, the bed, your feet kind of hang out over the end of the beds. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of small for me. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that time is of the essence here. And, you know, we got to keep this moving forward because the facilities there are, you know, I'm concerned that at the staff level, they may feel that, you know, we don't care about what they have to live in. And they may think of other departments. So I want to make sure that we show that we hear them. We're doing what we can to move this forward to improve their facilities, the people that serve us.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Well, I was at the open house at the fire station and I got my tour from Chief John Delane. I was shocked. They have 1 bed. They have 3 totes underneath the bed, and for each shift they repurpose the bed. And believe me, they're not big beds. So anyway, and to Trustee Warren's, they're using closets for, I don't know, stuff they're not supposed to or repurposed. But I am concerned about exactly what Trustee Baum said. What are we getting for this money? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we are being we're being reminded by our constituents that we have to be prudent with our dollars. And I found this Business of Public Safety Committee from last year, and it was regarding the Public Safety Building Needs Assessment. And the evaluation came back, and we did not pick the lowest bidder. We picked the highest bidder, not the median, not the lowest, but the highest. So I want to make sure that the RFP is taken seriously, that all the needs are met by the fire department, and we do it in a prudent manner. We don't, we're asking for cleanliness. We're asking for no mold, just all the regular stuff you would want. And doing a commercial kitchen is not cheap. So, and I think to Trustee Baum's point, I think he was going here. If you do an addition on one end, you can't keep going on the other end. We don't know what our budget's going to be going forward. And we may not be able to make another police station, fire station addition. Maybe they can't have 2 stations for, 20 years. So what are we going to do? How can we expand it? So those factors have to be, I want to make sure that they're taken care of. And I want RFPs to be fair and us not, and us to know what the cost is. So it's 14,300 plus something to get everything evaluated. That's what I'm hearing.
No. Yeah, I just, when I was in the school board, we went through an $84 million referendum, so I've got a little bit of experience in this. We've got $500,000 built into the budget for design work.
Right.
They will design a building not to exceed, how much is the budget? 6.1 million.
1.
Right. They're not going to do that.
Okay.
They're going with the footprint north of the building, so as not to impact a future possible bay construction, because we heard from the chief a month ago that he is definitely looking for additional fire apparatus. So we need a place to house that. Highly unlikely that a second fire station will be approved in the near future. That's not to say it can't happen 10 years from now. So this is what we got. The design phase will include everything that is needed to construct a $6.1 million building. Very simple. So,
Except
Trustee Baum.
we don't know what's in the $6.1 million building. Can we do it for $4 million?
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Well,
Know what's in this building.
You go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, I think we can get some of those answers through the first phase of the design process, where they'll do the schematic design, they'll have a construction estimate, and we'll have more information then to make that final determination. Do we want to proceed to phase 2, where they're going all out on design and getting construction documents ready? But there's a pause at phase 1 that we can come back and say, do we like what they've put together here? And does this construction estimate line up with our budget?
And this is just architectural designing. And will that include the costs associated for FF&E, costs associated for HVAC as a line item, costs associated with replacing all the windows?
Yes.
Okay.
Are the MEPs and structural included in the RFP number, in that $500,000? Or is that above and beyond?
They're
just for architectural, or is it inclusive of electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, plumbing engineering, specialty engineering, civil engineering?
Yes, it would include all the
all
the engineering and architectural.
And again, $500,000 is the budget. We'll see what the proposals come in at. They might be less, they might be $500,000, they might be more.
Further discussion, Trustee Rick Miller.
We don't have a motion yet, right?
Make it.
No. Move approval of the draft RFP for publishing.
Second.
Terry and Joanne.
Pick one, we
Terry.
don't care.
Discussion.
I'll fight Terry after.
Okay. Further discussion. Seeing none, Trustee Jan Miller?
Do we put what our budget number is when we do the RFP?
It's in there.
Thank you.
Further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Roll call, roll call.
We don't,
Yeah, it's money. It's money.
but it's RFP that we don't know what the number is.
Is it roll call? Brian, roll call?
It's future money, so it doesn't have to be, but anybody can request it to be.
Roll call.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Cutts,
Aye.
trustee Baum,
Nay.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Borst,
Aye.
trustee Pieper,
Aye.
trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, and President Sutter.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you very much. We are on to item E, request for proposals for community engagement services
Continue.
sorry?
Continue.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
That was just a.
Item E, request for proposals for community engagement services related to redevelopment of the former Flower Source and Grossnick properties in the Village Center District. Administrator Krecklow.
All right, thank you. This is an RFP that was drafted at the request of the village board back in August. I'll say that staff is late in getting this, moving this forward. I won't make excuses. I'll just apologize for being late in getting this to you, but it is before you this evening. And what this does is send out an RFP to solicit firms for community engagement related to both the Flower Source property, and one thing that was added was to include the Grossnick property. These are generally kind of generic in form. We didn't do a lot of describing the means or methods that the firms would use, but allow them to put that into their proposals. We did not in the RFP mention the previous work that had been done on the Village Center by Rinka. Although I think when a consultant is selected, that's something we should make sure they're aware of and that they have that information. The product that we're defining in the RFP is just to basically end up with a set of development parameters that then could be used by village staff or a different consultant to create some zoning level development regulations and design guidelines for developers. So this is a step towards getting a consensus from the community of what these areas would look like that would be a couple of steps down the road, result in an RFP for sale and development of the properties.
Make a motion to approve new business item E as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Trustee Baum.
Second.
Oh, trustee Chad Miller.
I understand that something should be done here. This is part of the entire village center. And my problem is we're spending probably too much money just trying to sell these 3 properties or trying to figure out what they should look like, when in reality, it is part of the village. And if we don't have a continuous plan, then we actually are piecemealing something together when we want a contiguous village center or some type of connection. And I think that's really important. We have all these districts, Village Center District, Holy Hill District. We designed these districts and we've just kind of abandoned it. And even though we bought the properties, the majority of the village board wanted to buy the properties. Now here we are. So there were some things we didn't get to look at that should have been looked at, dig deeper. And I think this is just something that should be included in a full look. And that's why I'm not supporting this. I want to do a village center district plan.
Trustee Baum.
I completely disagree with you. This is the beginning, the groundwork for the overall district. It's going to talk about what should be in this district, specifically on this site. What should the design guidelines be? What's the density? What's the height? Specifically for this site, but generally overall in the area. You think this is only about this site. I look at it as the basis, the starting point of the overall village center plan. So I think you're completely wrong.
Further discussion. Trustee Warren.
What consultants is this being sent to?
Well, there were 2 that were specified by the village board in August, Van de Waal and Grafe. That was the direction from the board in August. There are a number of others that we've sent RFP tos in the past. We could have Jordan Yankee come up and kind of talk about what those are, but
These are selected by us. This isn't a broad open to everybody.
No, I think we would open this up and make it a fairly widely available. I actually got a call this afternoon from a consulting firm or a planning firm from Minneapolis that was asking about this RFP and some others and asked if we would send them a copy. So I unless there's direction from the board just to limit it to those 2, we would.
Your
issue this
language is a
pretty
little
broadly.
confusing though, because you said the village board directed staff to 1, add the Grave Consulting firm to the list of consultants that will be asked to submit proposals. So the way that's worded is we have a select group of consultants that we're only sending this RFP to. So that's what I want to clarify.
Yeah, and Jordan can tell you the companies that are on the list, but I will say that, you know, typically we will send RFPs out to a list of firms, but we'll also put it on our website, and you know, sometimes we'll advertise in other locations too. But you know, we don't necessarily just limit it to the firms that we send the RFPs to.
Well, that's what I wanted the clarification for. Thank you.
Jordan, before you speak, trustee Pieper.
He just answered it right there. I was going to ask him, where exactly do you post these RFPs for all of the developers out there to respond to?
Thank you. Jordan.
I don't have much to add. Trustee Warren brings up a good point. Maybe it was just a fact of wording in it. You know, we have a list. I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, probably a handful. Grave typically is up there. Foth sometimes does services related to these things. Rinka we had previously. I presume that won't be on the list, obviously, given the recent direction, but staff would probably come up with couple other firms as well. I know down in Chicago too, there's some firms that serve the area that do these types of projects. So I don't think we have a refined list right now, but it's probably just a matter of wording.
Well, it's basically, you're probably just going to notify those people, say, hey, we have our RFP out on this social whatever, so check it out. It's not that they have preferential treatment. It's going to be based, all the criteria will be the same.
Right.
Okay.
We also often post these on like the League of Municipalities website. There's no charge for us to do that since we're members, and we'll take those steps.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Great. Further questions for Jordan? Okay, did we have a motion on this? Second, further discussion? Say none. Trustee John Miller, do you have a question?
Does this RFP cost us anything to send out? Okay, I'm just asking.
Any further discussion? Say none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. We are now, thank you, Jordan. We are now on to item F, an ordinance, bless you, an ordinance to amend section 8.02 of the Germantown Municipal Code related to sidewalk, snow, and ice removal. Mr.
I make a motion to approve new business item F as presented.
Second, trustee
Discussion.
Baum.
We have discussion. Trustee Baum.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to something I heard in public comment. Those people in Blackstone Creek that were required to put in 2 sidewalks, are those sidewalks along River Lane? Okay, I didn't see any sidewalks inside their development. And is it not a fact that the ordinance says back of yard houses will be taken care of by the village?
The ordinance actually, that was one of the options that we discussed in the Public Works Committee, but what we settled on was adopting a map that largely follows along those lines, but there are some deviations to that in select spots where it makes sense. What strictly following that led to was, you know, we're plowing a section of sidewalk and then there's one parcel. And then there's another stretch, and then there's another parcel that we wouldn't plow. And that just didn't make sense. So generally, we just said, well, we'll just continue to plow that whole stretch as opposed to picking up our plow, driving over the snow and putting it back down. So what we would look to do if this does get approved tonight is come hopefully to the next meeting with the final version of the map that would also need to be adopted. The draft that we have working through Public Works right now is up on the screen. So generally you can see the colors. What colors are those? Red and blue. The red is where we would continue to plow snow. And then the blue is where we would transfer responsibility to adjacent property owners.
So River Lane
would get transferred to Blackstone Homeowners Association.
Even though it's a backyard.
Well, the property owner there is the Homeowners Association that's adjacent. There's other subdivisions where the private properties themselves abut the sidewalk or the right of way. And in those cases, generally, we continue to plow. So there was a message, I think, to the comments email about Meadow Creek Crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Meadow Creek Crossing, it's set up like that where the backyards are immediately adjacent to the right of way. We'll continue to plow that area.
Where's that on the map? It's
That
not my
is on
district,
Division
so-
Road. Yep, right down in that area.
Down there. Okay.
What is the pink?
The pink are sidewalks that exist but have not been plowed by the village. One of the revisions that we're working on and we'll discuss in Public Works in a couple of weeks is how to reallocate some of those areas to either the village or to private property owners, or in a few small cases, potentially not plowing some of those areas. So there's just a few details that we need to work out, but the map has gone under quite a bit of analysis with staff and with input from the Public Works Committee. But the ordinance itself is adopting a map-based approach to what's in and what's out. So as sidewalk is added to the village, then the map itself would need to be updated.
I was just going to add to that, note that the effective date of the ordinance is not until basically after this coming winter. So this winter, everybody's remains the same. We do the, public notification, the process of making everybody aware in time for next winter, basically.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Regarding Blackstone Creek, there was, some history there and a couple developers agreements. If that developers agreement says that they have to build the sidewalk, but Germantown has to maintain it, and I don't know what it says, but would that impact, basically, would developers agreements impact what we are responsible for?
I'll give you the lawyer answer. It depends. We'd have to look at the exact language of the agreement to see. I could think of language that would impact it. I can also think of language I've seen in development agreements that wouldn't impact it. So without remembering specifically the language here, I couldn't tell you.
Trustee Borst?
Do you have any thoughts so far or yet on how to communicate this? I know we have some time, but
Yeah, I think we want to use every avenue that we have available to us. So certainly, the village website and our social media accounts, and using the social media accounts of the police department potentially and fire department that have more followers than the village would be good. I think, there's regular utility bills that have inserts with just facts about different things coming up in the village. We'd want to have that in there as many cycles as possible. And then, potentially, getting a press release out where it could be more publicly available in some of the news sources that residents read.
okay.
Yeah.
Time is on your side.
Yeah, the whole idea with the, waiting the year is that there's not enough time right now. And we want to just finish this year. We have the equipment. One of the reasons that we brought this up was it just so happens that some of the equipment that we need to maintain the sidewalks, snow removal, is due for replacement. So by making this change, we also don't need to purchase that equipment and can see a pretty good savings there.
Trustee Cutts?
So just so I'm clear, the red area, the village is going to continue to plow
Correct.
indefinitely and just transfer the blue to the homeowner.
Indefinitely, as long as whatever version of the map eventually gets adopted, we'll do it until another map is adopted to take its place. So personally, as the Public Works Director, I would say, yes, we would continue to have this obligation. Down the road, I suppose folks could have a different opinion, because we will need to go through, regular updates as sidewalk is added throughout the village. And that'll open up, the opportunity to make changes anywhere.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Did you ever survey any of these people who are going to be, saying you have to do the plowing?
No.
No. The other thing I have, I'm concerned about is, it was brought up in public comment that the ordinance, do we have to write an ordinance for this?
That's what this item is. It's
Okay,
recreating 8.07?
right, okay. And then, but they mentioned that there is an ordinance that subdivisions have to have sidewalks. New subdivisions have to have sidewalks.
No,
There's no ordinance like that?
no. Whether or not a subdivision has sidewalk is largely up to what a developer proposes and what the plan commission and village board approves.
Right. The development standards don't require sidewalks in any locations. The development standards do identify the specifics if they are to be installed pursuant to the development. So it's something that typically is done in the course of the plan review process of the development. On average, I would say your smaller lot sized homes you tend to be, at least recently, being told to put sidewalks in.
Why?
Your walkability. People are a little bit more dense, and so you have walkability concerns would be my guess, but you'd have to talk to the planning commission specifically about that. And developments that are more rural in nature, you generally wouldn't, but we have in some of those instances required it along main streets. So like Renwood, for example, is a good example where we require them to extend sidewalk on the north-south road along the east side of
But not
Renwood.
in the subdivision?
No,
No.
outside of the subdivision.
Right,
Country area.
right. So, I think it should be noted that if you put in a subdivision that if you elect to do sidewalks, that's the property owners. It's just like the city then. Just saying.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Sorry.
Any opposed? We have, that motion carries. Okay. We are now on to adjournment. We are adjourned at 9:41. Thank you for coming and drive home safe. Now I'll say.
Now you can.
Good.